Welcome to Biology My Passion. I'm Soumya Harikrishna. We will discuss a few important questions of ecology unit. The first question is state Gauss competitive exclusion principle. Gauss's competitive exclusion principle state that two closely related species competing for the same resources cannot coexist indefinitely and the competitively inferior one will be eliminated eventually. So when you are studying competition, three rules you have to study. One causes competitive exclusion principle, but we know it may not be correct in all situations because MacArthur did one experiment with the warblers living on a tree. Five different species coexisted by rearranging their foraging pattern or partitioning their resources. That is called a resource partitioning. And also, one more rule is there competitive release, which states that when a superior species is removed from the scenario, the inferior species will spread out to that geographical area. That example is a barnacles like Balanus and a Cathamalus. So please keep in mind three rules we have to study. One is competitive release, Gauss's competitive exclusion principle, and resource partitioning. Name the type of association that the genus Glomus exhibits with higher plants. Glomus is the fungus which forms association with the roots of trees. That is called a mycorrhizal association. Since it is external, we can call it as ectomycorrhiza also. Again, here comes an important question. How does the plant benefit if there is mycorrhizal association? Basically, this fungus absorbs nutrients for the plant, especially phosphorus. Second, as long as the fungus is living in the roots, root-borne pathogens will not infect the plant. So these are the two advantages. Next, state what does standing crop of a trophic level represent. Standing crop is the total amount of living matter or organic matter present in an ecosystem in unit area and unit time. So there can be a question, how can you measure standing crop? Standing crop can be measured either by taking the number of plants, that is absolute count, or by measuring the biomass. There is one more terminology related to the standing state. Please don't get confused. Standing state is the amount of nutrients available in the soil at a particular time. Describe the mutual relationship between fig tree and wasp and comment on the phenomenon that operates in their relationship. The interrelationship here is mutualism, means both the species are benefited. Female wasp lays its egg inside developing fruit or fig tree. Female wasp lays its egg inside developing fruit of a fig tree. Female wasp use fig fruit as oviposition site and also use its developing seed for nourishing its larva. The wasp pollinates the fig inflorescence while searching for suitable site for laying egg. Thus, fig and wasp both get benefited from this phenomenon. So, the same question can be asked: how is fig benefited, or how is wasp benefited, like that? Next is construct an age pyramid which reflects an expanding growth status of human population. So three graphs are there in the textbook, three pyramids, age pyramids, that is expanding, stabilizing, and declining. Please practice it and also make sure that you are writing each level, whether it is post-reproductive, reproductive, or a pre-reproductive. Without mentioning that, your diagram won't be complete. Suggest any two practices giving one example of each that help protect rare or threatened species. There are two ways of protecting or conserving the plants or animals. One is in situ conservation, where we are conserving the entire habitat in order to protect that particular species, or ex situ conservation, where we take out the organism from the natural habitat and give extra protection in an outside environment. So, in situ conservation, we can talk about national parks, biosphere reserves, sanctuaries, Ramsar sites. Ramsar sites are actually basically the mangrove sites and sacred groves. Whereas ex situ conservation, zoological parks, botanical garden, wildlife safari parks, cryopreservation techniques, tissue culture, seed bank, and pollen banks. So the last four methods mentioned here are the latest technologies. So you should clearly study the examples of in situ as well as ex situ conservation. Where would you expect more species biodiversity in tropics or in polar regions? Give reasons in support of your answer. So our answer is tropics, and that alone can come as a 3-mark question. Why there is more biodiversity in tropics? So There are three main reasons for this. One is undisturbed habitat since millions of years in comparison to temperate and polar region which face frequent glaciation. So since there is no disturbance, it favors speciation, means formation of species, as it is a product of time. Then second is less seasonal variation than polar areas, because in temperate and polar regions the season is highly extreme, whereas in tropical regions it's moderate and predictable, more or less constant throughout the year. Third is high availability of solar radiations than polar area, which harbors more plant species. Since solar availability is high, definitely the photosynthesis is high or the biomass production is also high. Write the importance of measuring the size of a population in a habitat or an ecosystem. Explain with the help of an example how the percentage cover is a meaningful measure of population size than mere numbers. So, measurement of population in a habitat determines the relative abundance of that particular species and the effect of the species on the available resources or habitat. Then what are the ways in which we can do is also important. There are different ways. One is absolute count, where we are doing literally head count, or we can go for a relative count, or we can go for biomass or indirect methods. So percentage cover is meaningful measure of population size than mere number in certain cases, because relative abundance of a species is not only determined by number but both, that is relative abundance in number and in biomass. For example, in unit area, the number of grass species or parthenium, which is a weed, individuals or relative abundance in number is high, but not in relative abundance of biomass. If the same area has one or two ficus bengalensis is our banyan tree, as it is very low in relative abundance in number while high in relative abundance of biomass. Following graph shows the species area relationship. Answer the following questions as directed. This is another important area that you have to focus on. Name the naturalist who studied the kind of relationship shown in the graph. It was done by Alexander von Humboldt. Write the observation made by him. He observed that within a region, species richness increased with the increasing explored area, but only up to a limit. Suppose you are asked to state or define species area relationship also, you have to tell the same answer. Now, the second question is write the situations as discovered by the ecologists when the value of Z is the slope of the line, lies between point 0.1 and point 0.2. If it is between point 0.1 and point 0.2, for small area, regardless of taxonomy group, the Z value lies between point 0.1 and point 0.2. Point 0.6 and 1.2 indicates that for larger area, like a continent, if you consider entire continent, the Z value increases. Z means actually the slope of the line. When would the slope of the line B become steeper? The slope of the line B becomes steeper when species area relationships analyzed in a very large area like the entire continent. Describe the interrelationship between productivity, gross primary productivity, and net primary productivity. Productivity is the rate of biomass production per unit area over a period of time. Gross primary productivity is the rate of production of organic matter during photosynthesis in an ecosystem. Net primary productivity is the gross primary productivity minus respiratory loss. So, from whatever is prepared entirely, that is gross, some amount will be lost as a heat, that is respiratory loss. So, if you reduce that respiratory loss, subtract it from the gross, what you are getting is the net productivity, only that is available to the next trophic level. Name the type of biodiversity represented by the following. 1,000 varieties of mangoes in India. 1,000 varieties of mango means within the species, different varieties are there. That means it's a genetic diversity. Other two examples are the types of rice, and also Rauwolfia vomitoria has different varieties. Variations in terms of potency and concentration of reserpine in Rauwolfia vomitoria growing in different regions of Himalayas is also an example of genetic diversity. Western Ghat has got more biodiversity than Eastern Ghat. Here, species diversity we are talking about, so species level. Then finally, one more is there, that is ecological diversity. For example, India has more ecological diversity than a Scandinavian country, so that is a ecological diversity. Next question is about ecological pyramid. We know there are three types of pyramids. Compare the pyramids of energy, biomass, and numbers. Write any two limitations of pyramids. Graphical representation of relationship among the organisms at different trophic level is called a pyramid. Pyramid of energy is showing transfer of energy from one trophic level to the other, whereas pyramid of biomass shows transfer of food or biomass from one trophic level to the other, whereas pyramid of number shows number of organisms in each trophic level. But pyramid of energy is always upright. Biomass pyramid or pyramid of number can be inverted at certain situations. Now, coming to the limitation of a pyramid, it does not accommodate the food web, does not take into account the same species belonging to two or more trophic levels, and also saprophytes are not given any place. So, 3 points or three limitations are there. First, food web is not accommodated. Actually, food web exists in nature. Food chain is only a hypothetical situation. And if an organism is occupying two different levels in a trophic level, that cannot be depicted in a pyramid. And also, saprophytes are not given any place in a pyramid. Hope these questions were useful to you. All the best for your exams. Thank you.